Welcome to today's episode of TSARP. I'm your host, Andrew Weir, and today our co-hosts are Sam and Steven.
I'm very excited for today.
So am I. There we go. My mic's working.
Yeah, today we have a very special guest, the founder of Gimkit.
Woohoo!
Yippee! I'm
We
excited.
could get a cheer track.
Oh yeah, we should.
Yeah, so if you want to introduce yourself, you may do that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you don't need a cheer track for me, trust me. But hello, everybody. I am Josh. I'm the creator of Gimkit, which I started as a school project a little over 6 years ago now. Just turned six as of like last week or 2 weeks ago. And yeah, basically, Gimkit is an online learning game. I know they've talked about it quite a bit on this podcast, where students answer questions, and while they're doing that, they're playing some fun games that we make. I guess that's the quick rundown on it.
Yeah, I mean, we play it on the podcast every Wednesday whenever you guys announce your newest Gims, the characters in Gimkit. We announce those, then we play a little bit of Gimkit. I mean, our favorite game mode. I mean, we played a bunch of different game modes recently, but the one you just released was Don't Look Down, right? I wanted to
That's so much fun.
Yeah, I know. It's great.
I
I
love
love
this
it.
one.
Platformer games, one of my favorite types of games. So in 2 days, if some of you guys want to tune in and play that with us, that would be great. But yeah, so let's get right into it. You said you started it 6 years ago, which is, whoa, that's crazy how far you guys have come. I mean, you would have never been able to tell, right, from playing it. It looks like 10 plus years have gone into it because it's truly a great platform. So,
Thank you.
really, what was your inspiration? Why did you create it? You said it was for a high school project, right?
Yeah. Well, okay, so I guess going back a little bit, I played in ninth grade, which was my first year of high school. I played games like Kahoot and Quizlet Live in class. And I loved playing those games. I typically was not super engaged as a student in school, but when we played Kahoot, when we played Quizlet Live, I mean, that really did get me engaged. I love playing them. And then this new school opened up in my district, which I always describe as basically being the opposite of traditional school. And so this school, we had no classes, no grades. We called our teachers by their first names.
Wow.
2 days out of the week, we would actually go out of school and to an organization or business and intern with them. So it was really completely different than traditional school. And
insane.
I was lucky enough to be able to go to the school. And yeah, basically for the school, we did projects as our schoolwork. Whatever we were interested in, we would show our learning through projects. And I actually was just wrapping up my first year at this new school. So I was a sophomore. I had been working on kind of smaller coding projects. I'd been coding for less than a year, actually, when I first started working on Gimkit. And this entire time, I'd been doing these smaller coding projects, nothing really too big. And I really wanted to work on something that would really challenge myself. I was like, all right, what if I try to make an actual product, not like a small side project, not a small side project, but an actual product. And so I thought about, okay, well, what would I actually want to exist myself? Like, what would I actually want to use? And then, yeah, I mean, I thought back to when I played Kahoot and Quizlet Live, loved playing those games. And I thought, what if I made a game of my own? And that's kind of how it started.
Wow.
Really cool. I
That's
mean, like you said, it's cool that like you made a better version of what already existed, right? Because a lot of people think, oh, there's something like it, not as good as I want to make it, but something like it, so I'm not even gonna try because people are gonna always play that one. You proved all of that wrong, by making a bigger, better version, and kind of blew past those other ones. And now, I mean, a huge. I'm like, we started using it in our school at least last year. But we knew about it way before then. And I mean, Gimkit is huge now. Like every class, at least once a week, we're playing it.
Mhm.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so great study tool, right? Even if you're not in a class, you can host your own game to study. You also now, I don't know how recent this was, but you also have you can assign it as homework too, which is another great way. But even more recently, a few months ago. This was the last school year, but you released Gimkit Creative. So, what was your inspiration with that? Why did you want to create Gimkit Creative?
Yeah. Okay, so I guess this question also has a little bit of history to it. So I guess, if you're familiar with Gimkit, you'll know that we have 2D game modes. But before we had 2D game modes, we had non-2D game modes. So basically, like when Gimkit first launched, the game was you would answer questions to gain fake money, and then you could use that fake money to buy upgrades to allow you to earn money faster. So you would start off earning like $1 per question, and then you would answer questions, gain some money, and then you would spend that money to buy an upgrade that would allow you to earn $10 per question. So you would kind of reinvest. And actually, that was kind of the gameplay for a long time. When Gimkit first launched 6 years ago, that's all it was. And then slowly over time, we started adding kind of twists on top of that core gameplay. And then we had about like 10 different game modes that were that non 2D style. So like there weren't any graphics or anything like that. And I was kind of reaching this this point where there was only so much you could do with the traditional Gimkit gameplay. And I was thinking ahead quite a bit of how can we take our games to the next level, but kind of more long term, how can we actually make it so other people can make their own games? And kind of the way I got here was every time we would build a new game mode, we would actually have to do a ton of engineering work to make things work properly from the networking side. So with all of our game modes, it's a little bit tricky in the fact that people can join in late and people can get disconnected and then reconnect, and we have to catch them up. Or people can leave, and then we have to figure out all these sorts of things, like all these unique little edge cases, and we have to code all of that. And so our final few like non 2D game modes, which were like the floor is lava, trust no one, a lot of time was spent actually just handling those edge cases of like, all right, well, during Trust No One, what happens? Which is Trust No One is our like Among Us style game
Yeah,
mode.
Yeah.
I know
I
that
like
one.
What
that.
happens if like someone joins in late? Like, okay, I guess they can't be an imposter. They have to be a crewmate. But what happens if an imposter leaves early and just like all this stuff? What happens if someone gets disconnected and they reconnect? Like figuring out what they missed out on and catching them up on that. So it was kind of like I'd say like 50% of the time was spent building the mode, and like 50% of the time was spent dealing with these very small edge cases. So part of it was also, all right, what if somehow we can make things so that we could just build our game modes and not have to worry about any of that stuff? That was one piece. I wanted to like simplify that so we could just focus on building a game mode and not all those weird edge cases. Part of it was the fact that we were kind of running out of options, I felt, in terms of what we could do in traditional like non 2D game modes. And then the third piece is I'm a very big Fortnite player. I played a lot of Fortnite, and Fortnite has something called Fortnite Creative, which allows people to build their own game modes inside of Fortnite. And Fortnite at a point in time was pretty boring and dry, and I would have actually stopped playing the game if it wasn't for the modes people made in Creative. So I was like, I really liked Fortnite Creative. I also had made some of my own maps in Fortnite Creative. And it was kind of like this thing of like, all right, what if like we brought all three of these things together? It would kind of like fix all three of these problems. Like we'll be in a 2D world, so we have so many more things we can do game wise. And if we make something like Fortnite Creative, then yeah, really we can just focus on building the game, and all those weird networking edge cases will be taken care of. And then yeah, we could also have a place for people to like build and create their own games, which I love, and I like any way to get students and people building things. I'm a huge fan of. So I was like, this seemed like a great thing all around, but at the time, like I had no experience building anything with graphics, and so it was a big risk of like, can we do this? But we tried, and thankfully it did work out. But yeah, it was that I would say is the original idea behind Gimkit Creative, was taking those three different things and just seeing if all together it might be able to work out.
Mm.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like you said, we call it a minimum viable product. But that's kind of like what you started out as. You took a very basic version of what Gimkit is now. You built that, and then you just kept updating that, updating that, which is a great strategy to creating something as large as Gimkit, because a lot of people are like, well, I want to make something, say like Gimkit. They try to make the full version all at once, but that is way too much of a task, to take on. So it's great to see how you just like built it up, like layer on layer on layer. And like you were saying with these new 2D game modes and Gimkit Creative, your art style is really cool with all the gims and stuff. And one of the first ways we actually found Gimkit was because our teacher, Mr. Ferrara, had seen one of the gims, I forget which one, and said to Sam that it looks a lot like his art style. And we're like, oh yeah, that's really cool. Like Sam, you should create
Uh,
your own.
I
And
remember this.
yeah, and Sam did, and then we're like, "Oh, Sam, really cool." And then, we're like, "Oh, we should show Gimkit." And what's really cool, one thing I really like about all of Gimkit's amazing, but one great thing is you guys are very active on social media, which is cool because you interact with the teachers and some of the students too. I see like us a lot, and that's really cool because Sam tweeted it at the Gimkit Twitter page, and whether it was you or someone else on the team had saw it and they replied, and it was really cool. We're like, oh, that's awesome. Gimkit saw it. So what inspired that art style? Did you make it? Did someone else make it? And who like kind of like designs all that stuff on your team?
yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, that was probably Jeff that got back to you there on Twitter. He handles Twitter, and yeah, he's fantastic at getting back to students, getting back to teachers. So actually, I think I remember that tweet from back in the day. Now that I see your profile picture, Sam, it's all connecting for me now. But okay, anyway, so the question was, how did the art style come about? Is that right? Yeah, that. Okay, so okay, when we first start working on, okay, so here's some information. Fishtopia was our first 2D game mode, but we actually started working on Gimkit Creative before Fishtopia. We worked on like the mode builder before we had any idea of what our first game mode was going to be. The idea was actually to make the mode builder and then like figure out what our first mode was going to be and release the mode. So, that's what we did. And I came into it kind of with a rough vision of what the art style should be, which is I wanted something a bit cartoony, but something fun, something that feels like it would fit well into schools. But I also didn't want something that felt like it would only be used by elementary school students, if you know what I mean. I didn't want something super childish, something that felt that only like first or second graders would use. So I wanted something fun, cartoony, but something mature enough that it didn't feel like just a quote unquote like children's game or young children's game.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'd say Among Us was definitely. I mean, Among Us was a big inspiration all around when like working on Gimkit Creative. Like actually for the longest time, but like before we had our games, we actually would just use an image of an Among Us character. So
Oh, wow.
maybe that just kind of wore off. But yeah, like we started working on Gimkit Creative in what was it, like early 2021. So Among Us was still like pretty popular back then. So I think that always like Among Us's art style had always kind of been in my mind of what the art style might be. But then yeah, so we looked to bring on our first artist, which he's still here. His name is Jorge, and he developed all of our original art. And now we have two artists, but yeah, he made the design for Gims, and more or less, I kind of just described to him what I just told you. Like, hey, I kind of like Among Us. I still want something cartoony, but not anything super childish. And he kind of played around with some different options, and we pretty quickly landed on our current art style. I mean, he found it really quickly. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, he just Jorge is fantastic. Like I just told him like by the time he came on board, we knew that we were gonna be doing a fishing game, and I was like, here are a couple different fish that I think people are gonna be able to fish, and he just kind of sketched different looks for them, and it kind of just seemed to work right away. And so yeah, I'd say it's mainly him. I kind of just gave him that little prompt, and he just took it from there and developed the art style that we have today. I have it on Twitter somewhere, but I remember I gave him I made like a quick little sketch of a gem, which looks like nothing like a gem. It's basically like a circle with two pegs because I
Oh,
can't draw. And he made that into what Gims are now. Actually, originally I thought our characters were going to be human, so our first characters were actually human, but they just did not did not work well at all. So we actually ended up switching over to Gims. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but I basically just gave him that little prompt and he just explored ideas and it just really seemed to work.
Yeah.
mean, it turned out
Um.
perfectly. I love how they look, the whole art styles. Again, I mean, I can't pick a favorite thing, but I mean, that's one of my favorite. Sam, you had a pretty cool question. You want to ask it?
Yeah, I have a few, but on the topic of like art, like who decides on like what games get added? Like, is it Jorge or is it you or someone else?
It's a group. I'd say it's definitely a group thing. So
Mhm.
sometimes it'll be me saying, "Hey, let's make some of these gims." Quite a few of them are just so our two artists now are Jorge and Jose, and quite a few times it'll just be them two say that'll be like, "Hey, I'm just gonna go ahead and make this gim." And then sometimes we also see stuff from the communities, gims that other people are making, and we'll adapt them into the game, bring them in. Sometimes it's Jeff. Jeff will also sometimes be like, "Hey, I think this skin would be cool." And then I guess other times we get emails from teachers that share games that their students made, and we think like one's a really cool idea, and we'll take it from there. So it just it totally depends. Yeah, some from me, some from them, some from students.
Yeah,
It's cool.
that's really cool. I like the engagement of the community and everything.
Yeah,
Thank you, thank you.
definitely. Yeah, I love that. When, like I said earlier, like you guys are always taking suggestions and listening to the community and on Twitter and, like you said, in emails. So that's always cool.
Yeah. And what's your favorite part about Gimkit, like currently?
Whew,
The hard one.
that
It's a lot
is
to pick
that's
from.
that is tough. Well, I would say I really like the challenges that I get to work on. Um,
Mhm.
let me think about that for a second. Yeah, I don't know if I'm phrasing that properly, but I'd say the variety of challenges of things I get to work on at Gimkit. Sometimes it's figuring out how am I going to design this game mode to make it work well, and other times it's dealing with like performance issues, and other times it's dealing with listening to teachers and seeing features that they want to be implemented. It's a really good variety of things that I personally enjoy. I think I would get bored pretty quickly if all my work was pretty similar. If I was just working on game stuff and like doing the same thing all the time. But I really like between like building our own game modes and creative, and then the teacher focused updates that I kind of get to work on a bunch of different things. And because we are kind of in the gaming space, I kind of always, try to push our game modes further, like Don't Look Down, which is our newest mode as a platformer. That took a ton of work, probably the most challenging thing I've worked on. And I like that. I like that because we're kind of in gaming, that I get to push myself and keep learning new things. And that's fun for me. I don't get to be complacent in like what I know. The entire Gimkit Creative and 2D modes was a big learning experience, and Don't Look Down was a learning experience. And just really, as we kind of push things further, it requires us to learn more and more things, which I enjoy. So I like the variety of things I get to work on, and the fact that it really keeps challenging me because unchallenging work is nice. I like right now I'm doing some unchallenging work, which is nice because Don't Look Down was very challenging, but I really like that challenging work to really, push Gimkit further, but also, push me further too.
Definitely, I like that. The challenge is fun in coding for me personally, so I get that.
Hmm.
I mean, that's really what coding's all about, problem solving and figuring that all out. And it's like a puzzle. And
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah. All right.
I'm not sure about you all, but for me, I mean, I did not like math when I was in school, and I also was not that good at it, which is interesting because I really enjoy coding. And for me, kind of what you just said, Andrew, it's about the puzzle solving aspect of it. Like with math, I always felt like you are solving a puzzle, but you know all the steps. Like, and it's just kind of about memorization of those steps in most cases, at least like in my experience. And for coding, it's you don't know those steps. You have to create those steps to solve the problem.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. But yeah, like I always thought about that. I was like, I like math, but I would like it a lot more if like there was more. And obviously they can't do that because you need exact rules in math. But it would be like more interesting if there was more creativity in the way you solve it,
Mhm.
which there is sometimes, but yeah, just like what you said. All right, Stephen, you had a question too. You want to say it?
Yeah, so I thought of two questions, which I'll ask the other one later. But what is your favorite game and slash or map if you have a favorite map?
Hmm. Well, I haven't played it with a class in a while, but I actually still believe that my favorite game mode, it's actually one of our non-2D ones, is Trust No One. I love social deduction games, and so I don't know. I did get the opportunity to play Trust No One with some classes when it first came out, and I just think there's something about the suspense of figuring out if someone's an imposter all at once and that excitement that I personally love. And I also just love like not being able to trust other people and figuring out who's lying, all that stuff. I love it. So trust no one it might be my favorite mode, but I actually would say that Don't Look Down is probably my favorite mode. Besides that, I really liked our two most recent modes, Don't Look Down and One Way Out. I think One Way Out took the title for being my favorite mode. But I think what I just say? One Way Out. Yeah, One Way Out. What did take the title, but now I think it's Don't Look Down. I think if I had to like sit down and play Gimkit right now, what would I play? I think it would be Don't Look Down. Now, how much of that is like recency bias? I don't know, but I'm enjoying playing Don't Look Down still.
Yeah,
Understandable.
I would have
I
to say
haven't.
Don't Look
Oh,
Down's my
sorry.
favorite. Yeah, go ahead, Steven. Sorry.
I have a similar opinion to what you were saying. I think I like One Way Out a lot. It's very fun.
I thank you. Yeah, I love One Way Out too, and maybe just because it's a little bit older now, it's not as like fresh and new to me. But
Yeah.
I guess I'm also kind of used to like playing the game modes by myself, which is maybe why I prefer Don't Look Down. And One Way Out is really fun actually if you are working with the class and like you're all going through the spaceship together. Um, Especially when you get to the laser portion. It gets chaotic. But
That's
yeah,
so hard.
it's close for me. It's close.
It was funny. I remember Mr. Farrar from earlier, and the three of us, we were all trying to beat it at lunch, and I don't think we ever did. We spent a good
Yeah, I
solid
don't think
three
we beat
days
it.
on it. And we're like, do we make it easier? And we're like, no, we got to do it. And then we got on. We had to do other things, but yeah, we almost did it. Maybe the Gimkit Wednesday coming up. Maybe that's what we do. Try to beat it.
Are you saying to this day you still have not beat it?
I probably
No,
haven't.
I haven't.
Whoa.
I
Oh wait,
gotta.
I think I did beat it one time.
Did
Really?
you? Oh man, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I feel like every time I play it in class, my classmates kind of let me down, or maybe it's me, but we'll see. Maybe this Wednesday will be the day we do it. Um,
I mean, yeah, if you're playing it in class, it depends how long you all play Gimkit for, but it takes a little bit of time to get all the way through. Of course, it depends on the questions that you're answering as well as the difficulty, but I don't know, it's typically to get to the very end a 15 to 20-minute thing.
yeah. Yeah, that's probably it. Maybe next time I should convince my teachers, like maybe just a little longer. Um, yeah. All right. Stephen, did you have a second question?
I did.
All right.
So I thought of this recently. Is there a significance behind the name Gimkit? Like, what sparked the name Gimkit in your brain?
Oh yeah, yeah. Unfortunately not a not a good story. So, yes, I was, working on this as a school project and I was ready to kind of share this first version of it, but I did not have a name for it. And over the summer, I had been listening to a podcast from this company called Gimlet Media. So
Mm-hmm.
Gimlet Media, and I was like, Gimlet sounds like a pretty cool name. I I wanted some. I really liked the name Kahoo because it sounded fun, but it didn't have like the word like quiz in it or like
Yeah.
tests or I don't know anything like that. Like it sounded funky. So I was like, all right, yeah, Gimlet sounds pretty good. My friend advised me not to go with it because a gimlet is actually an alcoholic beverage. But I'm like,
Oh.
Oh.
it's it it's a school project, like whatever. I don't want to like delay releasing this just because of a name, and I can't think of anything better. So I called it a gimlet, released it, and even though very few people used it initially, basically everyone was saying, obviously, yes, we can't use this in our class because it's named after an alcoholic beverage. So I had to figure out a new name for it, and actually, my co-founder Jeff, that's one of the first things we worked on together was figuring out this new name. And I still wanted something that was close to Gimlet, which was the original name, just so it wasn't too jarring and different. And yeah, basically came up with like a bunch of different names. Like Gimli was on there at one point, and basically I think I got 5 or 6 names of like our top contenders. And I just went around to all the teachers in my school, which there was like 7 or 8 because it's a pretty small school. And I just said, hey, rank these from like best to worst. And Gimkit ended up winning the vote. So it ended up being Gimkit. Gimkit, we had no idea at the time that it was going to mean anything. Like there's no like hidden meaning behind Gim. We just later on just decided to call our characters Gims, and then we call our question sets kits, and it works out that way. But there's no meaning behind it, and for the long time, Gimkit literally meant nothing. And I mean, like still to this day, it means nothing. Now we just happen to call our characters that. But yeah, that's the story behind the name.
Cool.
If we're gonna be honest, Gimli sounds like a really fun game. So
Yeah.
Gimli.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah, I mean, somewhere maybe in the future and future updates, you can incorporate that in. Obviously, not change the brand name, but somewhere, maybe in a map or something or a place. But yeah,
I think for Don't Look Down, actually, like initially before it was like what it was today, we were thinking maybe you'd be like climbing a mountain, and I think we were like I think Mount Mick Gimli was one of the names or something. But yeah, we got to bring back Gimli in some way. Got to bring him back. I also should I think I probably still have like the Google sheet where all my teachers voted, so I should find the other names as well.
that would be cool. We don't have a much better story. We don't even, yeah, our story for TSARP is literally, it was a different name, like kind of like you guys had. And then it was too long. It was a much longer acronym, so then we shortened
I
it.
TSARP
think
thought.
Yeah, it
I
was like
think
5 letters
I
longer,
think
and then we shortened it. And now the acronym really doesn't exist, and now it's just TSARP. So your story is definitely much better. But
Wait,
yeah,
so TSARP isn't an acronym for anything?
I
it
mean,
used to be.
it
It still
depends.
kind of is.
If someone asks, normally we just say it's the super awesome Republic of Programmers. That's kind of what it is, but it's just TSARP. There you go.
I for what it's worth, I like the name.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it works. Thank you.
I
Um,
think originally we were trying to make the longest acronym in the world.
yeah, we're like, let's just keep going with letters, and then I realized that would be really bad for a brand because no one would remember it. No one could search it up. No, so I was like, shorten it. Just make it 5
Well,
letters.
I got to know now. What was the original one?
I
Oh
think
God.
was it the
The super awesome
Rack,
I
which
know it
rec
because I made it.
podcast
Rec
that
was
The
the
super
happens once a week.
yeah, so
no
it
no.
was
So
Rec
it's
stood
this
for it was like a club we had made, and it was the Republic of Elite Programmers. This was just a school thing. And then we
coders.
Okay.
had made the podcast, and that was the super awesome Republic of Elite Coders podcast that happens twice a week. And it was
Twice a
like
week.
TSARP with an acronym in an acronym, TSARP TAW. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. So that's why we had to shorten it, and that's kind of like where we ended up.
All right, all right.
But yeah,
So we
If
got
I
some more
remember
gaming stories then.
correctly,
It's just as like it's what we ended up with. No
yep,
great reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
exactly. All right, Sam, Steven, do you have any other questions you want to wrap it up with?
Um, I don't think I do. You
yeah, I
pretty
don't
much
think
went
I
over
have any
everything
either.
I was
Covered really
wondering.
all the bases there. Uh, yeah, I mean, well, it's a fantastic story. Really cool to hear how it came about. Like when I read High School Project, I was like, "Whoa, that's crazy that you did it while going to school." That was really cool to hear about that school. Wish our school was like that. Our school is pretty cool though. Our
Yeah.
teachers kind of like supported the
I
podcast. We're
imagine
like the
school
only
has no
listeners
Mr.
when it first
Ferrara.
started. Yeah. So our school's cool, but I gotta say your school sounds better. Don't tell my
Yeah,
teachers.
yeah,
um,
from listening to your podcast, your school does sound really cool, and I forget the name of your computer science teacher, but it seems like you all have a good relationship with him, and it seems like you all are like continue to work on really cool and interesting things.
Yeah. So
I actually do have one more question.
go ahead.
Are there any future updates that you can tell us about, or no?
All right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna share with you what our next game mode is going to be.
This is
Ooh.
crazy. Is this the first place? Is this a TSARP exclusive?
It's a TSARP exclusive.
Whoa. That's our first.
You heard it here first.
I-
Okay, so we're working on it right now. Our next game mode is probably going to be called Blast Ball, and basically it's going to be similar to soccer, but you will have some sort of gadget that you will fire projectiles at to move the ball. And yeah, I mean, it's like going to be kind of similar to like Rocket League, I guess, in a sense,
That
which
sounds
is
very
it's going to be
fun.
like this very large ball, and everyone's going to be trying to fire at it and to score. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be half the class versus half the class, and we're still in fairly early stages, but we're gonna hope to have it out for next month, so it'll be out pretty soon.
That's awesome.
That sounds
And yeah,
pretty
I guess
cool.
it's called blast ball because you'll blast the ball to make it move around, and it should be chaotic but pretty fun.
Well, I can't wait to play it. Sounds awesome. Thank you for sharing that here. That's a TSARP exclusive, our first. Don't tell your friends. Tell them to watch the episode to find out. Yeah,
Yeah.
so thank you for joining us. This was awesome. Yeah, glad we finally got to do this.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Andrew, Sam, Steven. Thanks so much for having me on.
Of
Yo,
course. Thank you
of
for
course.
Our
coming.
pleasure.
All right, we'll see you guys, the audience, tomorrow, 4:30 every day. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.
Later.